Let's just bring you a quick reminder, if you are just tuning into the programme. Sebastien Lecornu announcing just over 2 hours ago now that he was resigning just after naming his government last night, but then going back on it and saying, actually, this isn't going to work, and resigning, handing in his resignation, which was accepted by Emmanuel Macron. Let's just remind you, if you weren't with us, exactly what he had to say.
En ce lundi matin,
on Monday morning, the conditions were no longer in place for me to perform my duties as Prime Minister and enable the government to appear before the National Assembly tomorrow. There were 3 reasons for this. The first was that these political parties pretended not to see the change, the profound break represented by the decision not to invoke Article 49 of the Constitution. In other words, there was essentially no longer any pretext for prior censorship. The second reason is that the political parties continue to act as if they had an absolute majority in the National Assembly. Basically, I found myself in a situation where I was ready to compromise, but each political party wants the other political party to adopt its entire program. And the third thing is that the composition of the government has not been fluid, and this has reawakened partisan appetites, which can be linked to the future presidential election.
Sebastien Lecornu there talking just over an hour ago. We're going to end this programme anyway. Marc Perelman, our French politics editor. Extraordinary events that we've been covering over the last 2 hours here on France 24. Sum it up for us. I mean, what on earth does it mean? Where does it stand for the future?
It's really difficult to predict. I mean, I could have never imagined I was here yesterday night to comment on the nomination for the new government, and I couldn't imagine that an hour and a half after that, the head of the Conservative Party, the Republican, Bruno Retailleau, who had just been reappointed as Interior Minister, who had spent a good part of the afternoon with the then Prime Minister Sebastien Lecornu, would come out with a statement saying, this government is not what we can accept. We really aren't satisfied. After 3 weeks of consulting, and his party had just agreed to be part of the government. And so something clearly went wrong. And what went wrong is not only that certain positions were not given and so on, is that from the grassroots, the Conservative heard that people were up in arms within their own ranks at their remaining in the government that was just ousted. And so this suddenly changed the whole equation. And so during the night, there were obviously discussions. Early this morning, Sebastien Lecornu went to the Élysée Palace, not to discuss a way to stay in power, but to hand in his resignation letter, which was accepted by Emmanuel Macron, and the President's Palace said so, communicated, just one sentence, communique saying the President received the resignation of the Prime Minister and accepts it. And then we had Sebastien Lecornu explaining that the conditions were not ripe, that there was too much partisanship, that despite his efforts to reach out, what was said behind closed doors, possible agreements, was not then said in public, that this led to divisions, even within Emmanuel Macron's camp, and as such, he couldn't continue. So we have the shortest tenure of a prime minister, 27 days under the Fifth Republic, prime ministers going, staying weeks, months, and now a big political crisis, because there's no prime minister, there's obviously no government, there's no cabinet meeting as was scheduled this afternoon, there's no maiden speech before the National Assembly from the prime minister, this was scheduled tomorrow afternoon, and obviously there are no discussions about the budget. Normally, those discussions should have started as per constitutional rules already. They should be on their way, and in order to make sure a budget is voted before the end of the year. So we find ourselves in really a mess. Let's call it a mess, a political mess, political crisis. Some are now saying it could be a regime crisis, because either Emmanuel Macron finds a technocrat who can calm things down, pass a budget, or he gives the baton to the socialists, to the left, saying, try it, I failed with my center-right or right-wing prime minister, try it. Or he could call for a snap election with a huge question mark on the outcome.
We shall see.